Chalk. Oh boy. The most overrated pet in the game. I said it. The most overrated pet in the game. Chalk Spirit. The purple pet's just better. It's OP League Stored though? No, it's not OP League Stored. Oh, I get 4 extra flame sand a map. I think that's OP. Hello YouTube. Today I'm bringing you a bit of a different video from the usual series that we've been working on. But we're gonna be doing a pets tier list video. Now this is gonna be less a tier list of the various pets within the game and more discussion about the role that each pet plays in the game and talking about their viability at various parts of the games, their viability at different levels, as well as just in general how good of a pet I think they are. Not just within their specific mechanic, but rather as a whole. And the reason why I say that is because mechanics are always subject to change. If a mechanic is good or bad in a given season, like, that will obviously affect, that's going to depend from season to season. But more so talk about, like, the role the mechanic plays within the game and at which phases of the game I think the mechanic is good. To give a better idea of what pets, if you're, like, a new player to the game, is probably gonna, like, always see use from season to season. And not just in one season where the mechanic happens to be OP. So, let's start off with the current league mechanic, Lady Obituary. Generally speaking, the current league mechanic is just always going to be very powerful for you in any given season. Whenever you play this game, this is always going to be the case where whatever the current league mechanic is, getting that league mechanic to at least level 1 is probably going to be one of, like, the most efficient things you can do in terms of FP per hour. The game is balanced around the fact that whatever mapping strat you're doing them in tandem with the league mechanic. So the league mechanic is always just this big bonus on top, and I've proved that in my Pet vs. No Pet series where, you know, just by having this pet and just running this pet in Profound, we made 3.5k FP an hour in Profound with no, like, other strat attached to that, just doing the league mechanic, nothing else. And that's pretty much going to be the case every single season in this game. There's never a season where the league mechanic is, like, completely poo-poo or just completely ass. Because the thing about the league mechanic is there's no investment for it. It is just a bonus on your map. The league mechanic would need to be exceptionally bad in a given season for it to be so horrendous that you're better off just skipping it. And when that is the case, they almost always will just come out and buff the league mechanic. As for this pet itself, I do think this pet benefits a fair amount from getting levels into it. At level 1, you have a 15% chance for the, like, more, like, blah. You have a 15% chance to proc Elegy. And what Elegy does is it doubles the rewards from the enemies that you kill. And going from a 13% chance to a 25% chance once you reach level 6 is a just disgusting increase of 66%. And instead of doubling, you also then triple your loot instead. That, combined with the fact that this league mechanic only gives 5% additional drop quant, makes it a very proc-heavy league mechanic pet. Generally speaking, when you look at, like, the league mechanic and try to determine how good it is level 1 versus level 6, the things you're going to be considering is, 1, how much drop quantity does the pet give? So in this case, we get 5% additional drop quant. A mechanic like Vorax, on the other hand, was giving us 18% drop quant for the vials, because nothing else worked on the vials. So going from 18% to just 5% additional, it's a bit of a hard one to calculate, because obviously 5% additional, additional is not the same as just pure flat drop quant. But I do think this is a more proc-heavy pet, where the Elegy proc does play a bigger role in the FE that you make from this mechanic, rather than just the drop quant from the pet itself, albeit the drop quant always does matter. And just having, like, the current league mechanic pet level 1 every season is just going to be worth your time. Next up, we're going to talk about Dorothy. Now, Dorothy is a very strange pet. Dorothy at level 1 is probably one of, like, the biggest differences going from a level 1 pet to a level 6 pet. I do think that Dorothy is a bit just not okayly balanced. I think, I'll be real with you, it's a fucking stupid pet. The fact of the matter is, at level 1, Dorothy has 12% additional compass drop quant, and a 3% chance for a supply crate containing 5 to 10 compasses to drop. That's level 1. At level 6, instead of 12% additional drop quant, she's giving you 30% additional drop quant. That is stupid. That is not balanced at all. That is just a disgustingly large difference in just the base drop quant that the pet itself gives you. And on top of that, your proc goes from a 3% to a 5%, which is again a 67% more proc chance. So the actual proc chance increase is the same as Lady Obituary, being 67% more. But on top of that, you then also have a 34% chance to have the proc just happen again. So this 5% chance for 5 to 10 compasses drop, there's a 34% chance, so 1 in 3, that it just procs twice, and just get twice as many compasses. Dorothy is a pet that is, unfortunately, kind of necessary to get to level 6, in my mind. Not necessary to get level 6 necessarily, but she benefits a lot from levels. So her power spikes are level 3, where you can get the 1 in 6 to get an extra supply drop, and level 6, where she just has like the full package. But pretty much every level on this pet is a pretty substantial gain, because even going from 12% to 21% additional compass drop quant is a very large increase. I should hide my chat in Aeterna, I just realized. Sorry about that. Yeah, so just going from, 12% drop quant to 21% drop quant is an absurd amount. It is not balanced at all. With that being said, though, in terms of versatility, I do think Dorothy is actually one of the most versatile pets in the game. You can use her in Safari, you can use her in Hunting, you can use her in Compass, like God's Chest, you can use her in Clockwork. There's so many like different ways, different flavors in this game of doing compass farming. And even in mechanics where she is not like, the main focus, if you just have a mechanic that just happens to drop a lot of compasses, you can just slap a Dorothy in, and she's almost always going to be like paying for herself and just being like a very good pet. If you think about like Chalk and the fact that Chalk is like this FE pet, it gives you a lot of additional FE, it gives you like the FE procs and things. Dorothy is essentially that with compasses, but the value of compasses are significantly higher than the value of FE. So she's just one of the best pets in the game. You can almost fit her into like any strat in the game, and she definitely is one of the like most worth it pets to get to like, level 6 and level up. Then we have Twilight Sparks. Twilight Sparks is the best pet in the game. Literally, if there's one pet in the game that is the best, it is Twilight Sparks. I would go as far as to say that Twilight Sparks even deserves their own tier. We have the Twilight Sparks here. So the reason why Twilight Sparks is so good is because at level 1, they give you 10% additional drop quant, and just some basic drop quant. I forgot exactly the amount. I think it was 24% drop quant. And then level 6, it goes all the way up to 16% additional drop quant and 30% drop quant. The reason why they are the best pet in the game is in pretty much every single scenario in this game, they can just be used instead of the blue pet. Like, there's very, 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 very few mechanics in this game where Twilight Sparks is not just able to be fit in instead of whatever like blue pet you would use instead, and not just then significantly outperform that blue pet. Absolutely go tier, just one of the best pets ever created. Completely fucking just powers. Like, both Dorothy and Twilight Sparks, like newer pets added to the game, they're just completely power scaling like old pets in this game and just making them irrelevant. And obviously the reason why I'm putting them so high up is because of their versatility. They're pets that if you do pull them, you will be able to use them pretty much everywhere. I think a very important thing for me when it comes to tier lists and stuff is about how versatile pet is. How often we're able to use them and find places to use them. Lunaria. So Lunaria is pretty much the exact same thing as Lady Obituary. it starts off as a 15% drop chance, like 15% proc chance. It goes up to 25%, and the actual like drop quant they give is just 6% drop quant. This pet is another proc mod. The value you get from this pet at level 1 is just abysmally low. The pet is just an abysmal pet to have at level 1. But once you get it to level 6, you know, and you're now proccing... You now have, like, a 25% chance to triple all the drops. You have a 10% chance to bless the area with, like, 100% additional drop count. Like, these procs that she gets from leveling them up is all the power of the pet. The actual base pet at level 1 is rather weak, because just getting 6% Lunaria drop quant is very, 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 very low. This is like even worse than getting the 5% additional drop quant from Lady Obituary. Like, this is literally less drop quant than just fucking Twilight Sparks' baseline. You know, baseline, you just have 30% drop quant on Sparks, along with the 16% additional. So the pet is just poorly designed. The pet is just made for you need to wail on this pet and get all the way to level 6, which is just absolutely disgusting. With that being said, though, this is not a discussion about the mechanics, but I will say about Lunaria and its state in the game is, at least in the current, like, balance of Lunaria, is it is essentially just a fucking slot simulator. There's people that were doing Lunaria on season start who were doing just, like, hundreds and hundreds of maps, dropping literally nothing, making no FE at all. If you go full investment Deep Space Lunaria, you're literally just breaking even all the way until you eventually... just happen to hit like an Omni Elixir belt, which is 10 KFE per, or until you hit like a good Euro Memory Revival, like, you know, like the Sage Euro Memory Revival material. And up until that point, you're just making no money at all. This pet sucks ass, man. This pet sucks ass, the mechanic sucks ass, and the only way to make it good is to like invest all the way to level 6. Because the pet just gains so much from levels, and it can only be used in the Lunaria mechanic. Which is also just a shit mechanic right now. Which is... I don't even know when you're supposed to farm Lunaria. It's just not even... The mechanic's, like, not even good. So yeah, it's a rough one to be a Lunaria enjoyer. Vorax. Now, Vorax is a different one. So, Vorax is an out-of-map mechanic. Out-of-map mechanics are automatically in this Tierlist going to be higher up than in map mechanics for one simple reason. If you actually look at, like, the drop rates of the game, when you have a mechanic like Lunaria, a pet like Twilight Sparks, like the drop quant, additional drop quant, all these things is gonna work in Lunaria. Which means that the value of the Lunaria pet itself goes down significantly, because things like this drop quant, all of these don't really matter, because other pets do the exact same thing, and essentially the pet just turns into a proc bot. Like, how good is the proc? And that's all that the pet does. When you have a pet like Intern Shally here, her increases antidote vial drop quantity is the only way you can increase the drop quantity of these vials. And the reason why that is important is because that means that the value of having this pet at level 1 goes up substantially. And I personally think that pets that are good at level 1 are much more valuable for like the average player playing this game than pets that are only good at level 6. Or like pets that gain that much from getting level 6. Because if you're like a new player and stuff, right, you might have some pets that you're gonna like wail on or splurge on, aka these, like the actual good pets in the game. Like your Dorothys and your Sparks. You're not gonna waste time on this shit. This can only be used in one mechanic. If your mechanic gets nerfed, what do? Your pet's fucking useless, you know? A generic use case pet makes a lot more sense for you then, right? But when you have a pet like Shally over here, even at level 1, completely ignoring her procs and everything that she does, just being able to get this antidote vial drop quantity has a lot of value for a person doing the Vorax mechanic. Because if you compare yourself to someone who's not doing who has no Vorax pets at all, well, let's see. You have 18% drop quant, 18% drop quant, 9% drop quant. These are the only drop quants that affect the Vorax mechanic. So you're just straight up getting 45% additional loot over someone who doesn't have the pets at any level at all. And for that reason, like, I would automatically just put the pet a bit higher. But then if we actually take, like, a step further and we actually look at what the mechanic does, I think the state of Vorax is actually very, very good right now. I think Vorax's mechanic is in a very good spot, because early on in the game, Vorax is one of the few, like, mechanics left in the game that just drop raw FE. You know, I remember doing Vorax early in the season, and, you know, I would get a Rainbow Vorax and just have, like, 20 FE drop in, like, Tomahawk 8. Which, yeah, 20 FE is not that much, but having it drop, like, multiple separate, like, 5 FE stacks and 1 FE stacks and things, and sometimes you go up to, like, 100 FE, 200 FE, when that's not the core, the core form of the mechanic, is insane. Because the thing you're forming is you're forming Vorax limbs, you're forming organs, you're forming sutures, you're forming all these things to craft the Vorax items. So the fact that it gives you a bunch of just raw FE in tandem with all of the organs, with all of the sutures, makes the mechanic itself very strong. As for the pet itself, at level 2 and level 3, you get the refreshes. I do think the refreshes are very, very powerful. And the fact that only at level 2 you get 1 refresh is a very, very potent tool, because it just reduces variance a lot. It makes it that you can much more consistently get to a rainbow every single time, or at the very, very least get to like 6 red every single time, which helps a lot. The other node where it's like you have a 20% chance to be able to open the Vaal again, not really the biggest deal. I do think the level 1 pet, where you have an 18% chance to dupe the rewards, is very potent. And what's really awesome with this pet is she doesn't have that bullshit of like, oh, if you have this pet level 6, you triple the rewards instead of double them. Which means that at level 1, Shelly is a very, very, very strong pet. I'm very, very happy with like the balance of her. And there is reasons to level her up to 6, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. It doesn't feel like you need to have this pet at level 6. It feels like it's a pet you can just get level 1, and if you like the mechanic, maybe you get like level 2 eventually of a box, or level 3 eventually of a box, but it's not like absolutely game-changing. And on top of all of that, she's really fucking hot. So, with all of that being said, I personally am going to be putting her in the S tier. I think she's an insanely good pet. I think she... I wish most pets were balanced like this. I wish most pets were balanced where it feels like the level 1 is 80% of the power, and then you get it to level 6 to get the last 20%. And the reason I say 80%, 20%, I mean, okay, those are just numbers I'm pulling out of my ass. But again, going from no pet, you have 100 base drop quant, okay? So, no pet, 100 base drop quant. Having all of the pets now and Shelly level 1, you go from 100 base quant to 154% quant, and you have an 18% chance to dupe the rewards. So you have an 18% chance to dupe the rewards. So we go from 100 base quant to 181 base quant, essentially. So, or like the loot we get. So instead of getting 100 FE, you're getting 181 FE. At having Shelly level 1. If you instead had Shelly level 6, you know, the increase would be a bit lower. I mean, it's hard to calculate for, like, this 10% chance to open the Vaal again. That is a bit hard to calculate, but it would probably be, like, 220 or so if I had to, like, guesstimate. And that obviously doesn't take into account, like, the less variance from having surgical instruments, but the actual pet and, like, the amount of power she gains per levels just feels way more balanced and just way more fair in my mind. Okay, going on to the next mechanic, Overrealm. Now, Overrealm's another out of map mechanic, which I know. You're like, what? No, it isn't. You're doing the same map over and over again. Yes, Overrealm happens within the same map, but the Overrealm map is not the same as the Netherrealm map. Which means the things I talked about on Shelly also applies to Overrealm. This 24% drop quant in Overrealm, this is the only drop quant that you can get in Overrealm. Twilight Sparks and pets like that do not work in Overrealm. So just off the back, having Overrealm level 1 is a massive boon, an extremely, extremely strong boon. Because you get this 24% drop quant in Overrealm, 24% drop quant in Overrealm, and 12% drop quant in Overrealm. Which means that versus someone who doesn't have any Overrealm pets, you have a 6% drop count or 6% additional loot just by having the pets at level 1. Which I like pets like that. I like pets where the level 1 is most of the power. With that being said, at level 1, you have a 70% chance to dupe the rewards, and at level 6 it goes up to 27% to triple the rewards. Unfortunately, there's another pet where, like, oh, if you get level 6, you triple the rewards, blah, 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 blah. I don't like those types of pets, but I will give it some credit in the fact that it is, at level 1, you know, a very, very substantial increase. And going from no Overrealm pet to level 1 Overrealm pet is very noticeable. With that being said, though, the Overrealm mechanic is not the greatest. So, the problem with the Overrealm mechanic is... I think the mechanic is fairly decent early on as a way to, like, get basic prisms, as a way to get, like, a lot of gear drops. Like, you drop a lot of gear in Overrealm. If you're, like, farming T8 Overrealm early on, and you just have any, like, gear of T1 mods on your filter, you will drop a bunch of items, like rings and things with, like, T1 int or T1 dex that you can sell for, like, 50 FE or 100 FE, which does give it a decent bit of value in the very, very early stages of the game. But then later on, it kind of becomes this weird mechanic where, at least to me, it kind of feels like you just have to go full investment. I don't know too much about Overrealm. Maybe there's some people that, like, are gonna disagree on things, but a playstyle that people, like, had in Overrealm was kind of like a free-to-play playstyle, was just doing boss rushing and going for the maximum amount of, just going for, like, the maximum amount of inverse images. And they completely, like, got to that playstyle and made inverse images just obscenely rare to drop for some reason. I'm not exactly sure about how I feel about it. I think the mechanic in of itself, though, is pretty fine. I think, like, even if you're, like, a, you know, a mid-tier investment player, like, you can do, like, purple Overrealm and still make a decent bit of money. And still make a decent bit of, like, just a decent bit of profit and things. But yeah, I just, when I think about this pet and its versatility, its viability, its usability and things, I think that it's just a worse pet than Vorax, in the sense of the Vorax pet, 1, feels way more fairly balanced to me. 2, I think Vorax as a mechanic has a lot more potential to it. There's a lot more viability to it. And 3, Vorax in the end game is kind of just always profit. Like, if you do orange Vorax in deep space, you're just making profit. If you're doing purple Vorax in profound, you're just making profit. When you do Overrealm, that's not always the case. You sometimes just lose money. It sometimes is just kind of a gambly strat until you, like, hit the big one. So I'm gonna be putting it in, like, the B tier. I do think it's a very good mechanic, though. I do think if you like Overrealm, it is a pretty fair mechanic to just get, like, level 1 and just do, but it's never gonna be, like, this insane strat. It's never gonna be, like, your Dorothy in Profound or your Twilight Sparks or anything like that. It's just average. It's at least not Lunaria. Fuck Lunaria. Yeah, I do think Overrealm is very, very strong early game, though. I think it's very strong early game. I just think its mid and late game is kind of lackluster. In the absolute end game, once you do reach deep space, I do think it becomes pretty powerful again. I haven't had the most experience of testing it in the end game, but generally speaking, to me, it looks worse than other options like Arcana Vorax or doing, like, Safari Hunting or doing Clockwork or things like that. But it does seem a bit lackluster in, like, the mid game. Okay, Professor Source. This is an interesting pet. So straight off the back, this is a in-map mechanic pet, so just automatically it's going to be lower tier than out-of-map mechanic pets, because at level 1, the value of the pet just goes down by being in-map. Because essentially, this drop con for tower security is drop con. None of these fluff actually mean anything, because if you look at the Pact Spirit site, what you're going to see is Twilight Sparks just completely gaps this pet, which means that all that this pet does is it is a trigger bot for its effect. Now, at level 1, it's the same as Vorax, 18% chance to double your loot. But then going up to level 6, it becomes 28% chance to triple your loot. As for the value of the pet, honestly, Outlaw is probably one of the best strats in the game. I mean, people play it every single season. It's one of the most loved strats in the game. It's very, very, very fun. People enjoy it a lot. It's also one of the few strats in the game that is kind of build specific, where, you know, you need a build that is set up to do Outlaw if you want to do it early game. Because you need a certain amount of clear, you need a certain amount of like damage. You know, it's not just a strat that you can just kind of go in and do like 5-minute maps and technically you're doing it. Because it does have that time limit within that you need to kill 50 enemies in like the mid game. And then it also is very interesting in the sense that you do have two setups you can play with it. So you have the bounty farming setup and you have the just like quant farming setup. I think in the early game, Vorax is kind of... If you can get your character strong enough to do Vorax early on, it's actually a fairly decent strat. Like, there's people that will like rush to Profound and things to do... Sorry, I'm saying Vorax, I mean Korjak. There's people that will do like setups where like they try to rush to get to like 1 trillion, 2 trillion DPS, get to Profound like day 2 of the league, and then just spam Outlaw and make a lot of money. I will say though, for the average person, I do think this pet is pretty lackluster in the mid to early game. Oh no, sorry, in the early game. The problem with the pet is it's so build specific to be able to do Outlaw in like Korjak in the early game. It's very build specific to be able to like have a build that's able to handle it. And generally speaking, like Tarmok 7, Tarmok 8, this pet fucking sucks dick, dude. Like at least Overrealm has some value in like Tarmok 7, Tarmok 8 because you can get prisms which early on are worth a lot. You can get like tier 1 gear which you can sell for 50 to 100 FE. You know, Vorax, you can drop the occasional FE and sutures and organs and stuff. You know, you can make early game Vorax items that you can sell. This pet doesn't really have that. It feels very lackluster in like Tarmok 8 and Tarmok 7. It only really starts to feel a bit better once you get to Profound, that you can do, so that you can start doing like quant farming. And obviously you can't really do early game bounty farming because the bounty compasses aren't there yet. If you do have this pet high level though, bounty farming does become very powerful in like the mid game of the season. You know, once the bounty compasses sort of set on price, they become very cheap. And you can just start doing like 120 maps per minute. Oh, sorry, 120 maps per hour to 140 maps per hour. We just run into the map, you activate the bounty, and you just go next map. Like you run in, you do the bounty, you leave, you run back in, you do the bounty, you leave. And you just do that over and over again with bounty farming. That's a pretty decent strat. It makes a pretty substantial amount of FE per hour. And on top of that, if you're like early in the league, if you manage to get to Profound very early on, and you're doing Korjak farming in Profound and you're doing the quant setup, you're gonna drop quite a few base mods which are very valuable early on. And then obviously if you like reach the deep space level and stuff and you start doing the orange compass, you're then farming like a lot of raw FE stacks, you're farming the orange weapon mods and kind of coping, because it's never really gonna happen, but coping to like drop the GG sequence on a prices item. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't happen. With that being said though, the one like saving grace that this mechanic does have in the early game is the weapon sequences. If you're like in Tarmok 8 and you drop a wand with a weapon sequence on it, that wand is always gonna sell for like 200, 300 FE. You know, you're gonna be getting a pretty hefty price on it. Because base mods early on are very expensive and people don't really want to like gamble with base mods and lose when they can just try to buy exactly what they want. You know, maybe they want core penetration, maybe they want additional damage on critical strike. And it's much nicer just being able to buy it straight up, but there's also going to be a ton of sequences you drop that are just not worth anything. As for the pet itself, it does have this. At level 2 and level 4, you get the bounty order refreshes. If you're gonna do bounty farming with the strat, you essentially need to get this. You essentially need to get this pet at least level 4, because being able to like have the bounties refreshes is just going to be very fucking important. Which means that for like people like level 1 pets, level 2 pets, you know, people that don't have the pet leveled, they're pretty much gonna be forced into doing the quant setups. And then the quant setups I do have issues with because it's kind of just very build specific. It is one of those pets where if you plan your build around doing like Korjak from the get-go, and you just go into the league doing carjack on a build specifically made for it, you're probably gonna have a decent time. But as soon as you're like struggling to clear the carjacks, your build's not perfectly set up for it, it's gonna be a bit meh, and it's a very, very competitive market. I think carjack is probably one of the most done like mechanics on league starts by people. It's one of the most it's like a favorite of like a large portion of the community, which kind of makes me think it's kind of eh. But I also really do like the pet a lot. I do have issues over design again. I think the difference between level 1 and level 6 is too big, where it does kind of feel like this pet does lose a lot of points for me personally, because it needs to be high level. You know, a level 1 Professor Source is just not that good. And it like feels bad for me, because when I think about mechanics, I'm giving recommendations to people, I don't really want to recommend mechanics where the pet at level 1 is just significantly worse than it is level 6. And that's not the case of every pet in this game, but Professor Source is definitely one of the more egregious ones when it comes to pet levels. Because of all of that, I will be putting it in B for bounty. But this game is about having fun. Just because I put it in B tier, that just means I don't personally recommend it for like a new player. If you're if you're going to into League Start, you're picking like Rosa 2 or Rayhan 2 or Erica 2, and you're doing like a fucking Berserking Blade build, and you're doing full screen AoEs, killing the mobs as soon as they spawn in. You're gonna go in there, you're going to activate the boss, you're gonna print some money, and you're gonna have a good time. You know? Like, you can make a lot of money with this pet, it's just very niche in my mind, which is why I don't really want to recommend it for new players. Sandlord. Oh my god, this pet is overtuned. This is probably the most hidden OP pet in the game. You can just throw... Sandlord is so disgustingly overtuned. I love this pet. This pet was the best investment I've ever done. I only had this pet level 2 from the Sandlord season, because I was like when I was a new content creator, so I didn't have that many primos yet. Because obviously I get given primos by the creators of the game every month. Now that I have spare primos, I'm so happy I got this pet to level 6. It was so worth it. So, first off, this is an out-of-map mechanic, which means this 12% additional trade order reward quantity and 6% additional raid reward quantity is the only way that you can actually boost the quantity of the mechanic. There's no other ways in the game to boost the quantity, which just already at level 1 gives her a lot of value. And if you get it to level 2, which is not, you know, it's not that hard to get a pet level 2. It's like just 2 boxes. You then also get this. When starting a raid, there's a 60% chance to just get all of your resources back. This pet at level 1 is awesome. This pet at level 2 is awesome. The level 3, getting a labor back, it's kind of whatever. It's technically really good, because if you have your trade hall at level 8, even if you're not in deep space yet, it can bring you back level 8 workers, and it's a way to get access to level 8 workers before you actually reach deep space, which can be very valuable, but it is also just very RNG. Most of the time, I don't get level 8 workers. If I got level 8 workers more frequently, I would say it's much more OP, but getting like the exact level 8 workers you need is kind of just, you know, it's a bit hard, because the only level 8 workers that really would matter would be gliders and getting like 3 of your shipment guys level 8. So this is kind of whatever. At level 4, 100% chance, there's a 16% chance to get 100% additional drop quant, essentially just double the rewards, without saying double the rewards. Level 5, you get 20% chance now to get a laborer back. And then at max level, your chance to duplicate the rewards goes from 60% to 24%, if I don't remember correctly. This pet is pretty much impactful at every single level that you can get it in. In terms of usability, almost any strat in the game can use Sandlord, because guess what? You just pay the Sandlord fucking compass fee, you just throw it into any strat, and you just have this like constant FE stream, like this constant FE source that just pays for itself. And the pet itself is just like super new player friendly. Like, if you're not like playing this game 24 hours a day, grinding non-stop, you know, you just play for like a few hours. While you're not playing the game, your cat girls are out there making you money. all of those reasons, I will definitely be putting this in triple S tier. I think it's one of the best League-specific pets in the game. Just because it's so friendly for like every type of player in this game. If you're casual, if you're more hardcore, like anyone can find use in this pet. The best part about it is she's least more close in the game. Okay, bro. Gestures. Now, Arcana is probably the first like pet they added to the game where people were like, what the fuck are you doing? Because this was like the first pet in the game where they introduced this whole like triple concept, if I'm not mistaken, where instead of getting double the amount of rewards, you get triple the amount of rewards. And it started the trend of like, oh, every pet at level 6 gives you ×3 loot instead of ×2 loot. A trend that I absolutely despise. But with that being said, the Arcana pet herself is actually very good. So just straight up, she gives you 12% increased Chest of Destiny drop quant. Again, it's an out-of-map mechanic, so this is the only drop quant you can get for Chest of Destiny is from Arcana. This 12%, this 12%, and the 6%. Nothing else matters. Like, this drop quant, this drop quant, none of it does anything. And what's very nice about this pet is she has baseline, like, this 4% chance for your destinies to be replicated once. The purple pet also has that. The blue pet also has that. She has this chance to, like, triple the chest, right? Like, 38% chance to give you the double chest and then triple it. The purple pet also has that. The blue pet also has that. I think that's awesome. I think making the blue and purple pets in the game actually do something is really cool. And with that being said, it is worth leveling these pets up to level 5. To try and get this 2% chance and this 1% chance. With that being said, though, in terms of all the pets we've talked about so far, I think Arcana is one of the most, like, widest reach ones. Because Arcana is kind of just always really good to do. Whether you're doing it early into the league, or you're doing it mid-game, or you're doing it late-game, it's pretty much almost always worth it to do Arcana. It's always a good farming strat at every point of the league. Because very early on, so we talked about some other pets. Let's look at some B-tier pets and discuss them. So Overrealm gives you prisms, and Carjack gives you weapon sequences. In terms of like your overall build and things, prisms and weapon sequences are an expensive part of your build, but not that expensive. Now, obviously, if you're going to go for like a certain intermediate sequence, it's going to become very expensive very quickly. But like just having like a basic sequence in the mid-game, or just having like a purple prism, or even like an orange prism in the mid-game is not that expensive. It's still going to be like less than 1,000 FP for both. And then in the late game, you know, you have like a fucking 5k prism, or you have like a 10k sequence. Arcana has a much bigger portion of your build's budget. I mean, I've spent personally over like 100k FE this season alone on my Kismets. And even in the mid-game and stuff, like, getting like your deal Kismets that you need, getting like your micros and things are very, very expensive. And because of that, like, doing Arcana in like the early and mid-game stages is pretty damn rewarding. You just get a lot of Kismets, you get a lot of microfates and things. It's very, very strong pet. And then also in the late game, she's one of the best like endgame farms because the Arcana Orange Compass, for some reason, is obscenely cheap. Like every season, it's like one of the most common compasses in the game. And it's extremely powerful because it just makes you drop a ton of Kismets when you do this mechanic. I think at every stage of the game, Arcana is like pretty viable, pretty good. It doesn't need a specific build to do it either. You can kind of just like throw it in almost any strat. I mean, that's literally been Legolas's playbook for like, you know, 5 seasons now. He just every season just does Arcana, and it always works out for him. With all that being said, I do rate Arcana quite highly, and I definitely think it's like on the same tier of like Vorax. Just being like a very, very good pet. Now, Vorax is in the S tier for me because of just how good it is level 1. I think the value of Vorax level 1 versus level 6 just makes it an insanely good pet. Arcana does gain quite a lot leveling it up. Because obviously going from... I don't remember what this chance is at level 1. But obviously going from it to like 38% is a pretty big difference. But the bigger thing is just being able to triple your loot. Like, being able to triple your loot is always just a very over-tuned mechanic. But in terms of, like, the pets that do have this built-in triple loot, she is by far the least egregious, in my mind, and has the most value outside of the triple loot, mostly because of how common her proc chance is. Because the actual, like, gain from level 1 to level 6, like, the amount of more loot you're getting is less. And then, obviously, the pet itself is just significantly better. But yeah, Arcana's going into my S tier. Rainbow Paint Owl. Rainbow Paint Owl is an amazing pet. I really like the design of this pet, and I have a lot of good things to say about it. I do not have a lot of good things to say about the canvas mechanic, though, and I think its current state is just dreadful and awful. But I'm gonna just start off by talking about all the things this pet does right. The first thing is this pet does have this line, 24% increased spender egg drop quant. This is an out-of-league mechanic, and an out-of-map mechanic, which means this is the only drop quant that actually works for the mechanic. And with that being said, you know, getting 24%, 24%, and 12% is 60% additional loot just by having these pets level 1, which is amazing. The second thing this pet does correctly is both the purple and blue pet have chances to give you Splendor eggs, which can be any color egg, which is very, very good because it just gives you, like, free loot, essentially, in the maps if you have them leveled up. Massive fan of that. The pets also give you more colored snow, which is used for, like, the canvas mechanic itself, which makes making good paintings easier. Simply lovely. Just absolutely love all of it. And just the kicker on all of this pet at level 1 is incredible. It is one of the best pets to have at level 1. It's very similar to Vorax, where it's like you can just get all of the power just front-loaded to you. Because if you have it at level 1, you get your 24% drop quant. You will have 1 to 4 of the cells give you double rewards. And, like, that's it. That's all you need. I had this pet level 2 for, like, the longest time ever. Now, I had it level 2 because, you know, I got my first copy and, like, my first 10 pull, so I just got level 2 of my free box the next season. But I used to be a canvas one trick for, like, many seasons in a row, and you just don't need this pet higher than level 1. It just does its job at level 1. Now, obviously, if you do level it up at level 3 and level 5, you get an extra refresh brush stroke. This refresh brush stroke, holy fuck, does increase your consistency a lot. It makes it a lot easier for you to get more rainbows. And at level 2 and level 4, she gives 2 extra spender eggs, which have a 1 in 7 chance to be a rainbow egg. So in terms of consistency and getting more rainbows on average, getting her leveled up does lead to, like, more average rainbows and more consistency, very similar to how Vorax leads to, like, more consistent Voraxes. And then lastly, at level 6, getting 2 to 5 cells increases the likelihood of you doubling your rainbow cells. But here's the problem I have with the pet right now, and that's the canvas mechanic itself. Getting rainbow chests getting rainbow eggs just doesn't fucking matter. The state of canvas is just miserable right now. It's in a very terrible state, where the only thing in canvas that matters is rainbow chests. You can get 10 rainbow eggs and not drop a single skill. And each egg is going to give you, like, 1 FE, even in Profound. And it's just completely pointless. The only thing that actually fucking matters for this mechanic in the current state of it is getting chests to level 6, because chests are the only thing that actually drops skills. Now, granted, you do always get Inspiration Essence. It is worth it to get, like, do level 7 chests and things, because you get Inspiration Essence, which sell for 2 FE per. Which, that is, like, a bit of a, you know, it does pay a bit. It's something, but, like, realistically, a level 7 chest, I mean, a level 7 egg is giving you 2 Inspiration Essence. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. The state of canvas right now is terrible, and because of that, like, I can in good conscience tell people to, like, oh, this pet's insane, this pet's incredible, but the actual balance and design of the pet is very good. If canvas was in a better state, this would be a triple S pet for me, but because canvas is in such a bad state, I'm only gonna give it an S tier, but I still think it's a very good pet. I think it's a very good pet, and if you like the canvas mechanic, you can do it. It's just the optimal way to play canvas right now is very unfun. But as a benefit, the optimal way to play canvas right now makes your pet completely fucking irrelevant. All you need is this pet level 1. Anything beyond level 1 doesn't fucking matter, Because all you're doing is you're just hunting canvases, trying to find the chest tile, and then making the chest tile level 6. Sorry, rainbow. Which means you can't double the rainbow, so this doesn't the doubling effect doesn't matter. The only thing that actually does anything is this drop quant. But yeah, I'm really sad about the state of canvas right now. It's such a cool mechanic and they just ruined it. Clockwork. No, Clockwork's a weird one. For starters, it has this 24% drop quant for dual securities drop quant. This doesn't do shit. This is completely irrelevant. Clockwork is a pet that is essentially just a trigger bot. The only thing this pet does is its trigger. And it's also a very solid pet to have at level 1. So if you have this pet level 1, you have a 25% chance, or 1 in 4, to double your rewards at the end of the Clockwork. And at level 6, it goes from a 1 in 4 to a 1 in 3 to double the rewards. Which is a substantial increase, but, you know, it's just going from 25% chance to 33%. The actual increase is not that much more, where a lot of people ask me, like, oh, hey, Mia, I have Doro 6 and Clockwork 1. Can I do your clocks from? Yes, you can do clocks. You don't need to have more than level 1 Clockwork. It is valuable to have more than level 1 Clockwork, but to start off with, you can do like a mid-investment Clockwork farm and still make a lot of money with only level 1 Alice. So Alice does have some very interesting level ups, and pretty much every level up on this pet is very impactful. It feels impactful, it feels worth doing. So at level 2, she gets this line where every time you do a cogwheel voucher, so when you finish the cogwheel, you have an 8% chance to get an extra voucher, which at level 4 then becomes 16%. That's awesome. More vouchers means more chances to get compass vouchers, which means more chances to proc your Dorothy. Because all that this mechanic is it is a way to proc Dorothy. So getting those level ups, very impactful. At level 2 and at level 3 and level 5, she gets a refresh attempt. So when you're choosing your Clockwork, you get like 3 options, and then you can refresh it once or twice. That's also very good. Sometimes you get 3 shot options, and then you can refresh it. And if you get 3 shot options again, you can refresh it again. That's really awesome. Those level ups feel impactful, and they're not game breaking or game changing or anything. Because if you have the pet level 1, it's still good enough. And then obviously at level 6, she does have the increased chance to double your rewards. I'm a very big fan of this pet. The only thing what I'm going to deduct from this pet is its lack of versatility. Because it's essentially just the right-hand man, or I guess woman in this case, of Dorothy. All that this pet is it is just a tool to make Dorothy stronger. And within the balance of the game, especially with the changes to compasses in the Afterlife season, this pet is essentially just a like profound only usage pet. Like in the past, there was reasons to do Clockwork in Atomic 8 and things, but now that you can't get Legendary compasses in Atomic 8 anymore, this pet just seems pointless before profound. So it for me gets placed in the mid to late game only territory. But holy shit, it is good in the mid to late game territory. If you get to profound early and you start doing Clockwork, you're gonna print so much FE. You're gonna make so much money. Once you do get to the end game and, you know, to like the late game stage of the game, where compasses start like, you know, dropping price and prices equalize and things, this pet is very, very valuable in both profound and Tarmok Deep Space. And the pet itself is a very good pet to just have level 1, especially if you have Dorothy. So overall, I'm going to rate this pet very highly, but I do think that it is with the assumption that you have Dorothy. If you don't have Dorothy, this is an F-tier pet. You will never find a usage for it, but if you have Dorothy leveled, you are forced into Clockwork as your farm, but Clockwork is a very, very good farm. Because the thing that Clockwork does very well is it buffs up your leak mechanic, which is something that I don't think people consider very often, is the fact that Clockwork has this. In Avalon, the global bonus effect of Clockwork Ballet Games' SSS rating is enhanced to 18% drop quantity. And this, in Avalon, just the rating effects of Clockwork Ballet Games will be applied to all monsters. This point here essentially makes it that your Clockwork is not only just a way to get like stacks of Dorothy, it is also boosting the League mechanic. And I've already talked about just how valuable the League mechanic is. The League mechanic is just always going to be one of the strongest like pets you can get in the game, because the current League mechanic is always going to be balanced around the fact that it's the strongest thing you can do. The reason I don't recommend people to get the current League mechanic necessarily is just because we don't know if the next season is going to be that good. But it is always worth it within the season that it comes out to get to at least level 1. So I'm very unsure. We don't have an A tier on the tier list, but I would just put this in the A tier. Honestly, I'm gonna do this. I think this should be the A tier. And I would also probably realistically do this. Because I do think this is more powerful. Perfect. You can't even tell I changed anything. Ignore the random lines. Yeah, I think this is a better representation. With all that being said, though, I'm going to be putting her in S tier. Just because of how Clockwork as a mechanic interacts with the League mechanic. I think it's S tier. If it wasn't for the fact that Clockwork beefs up your League mechanic as well, it would only be an A tier. And this is with the assumption that you have Dorothy. So I will just add that with Dorothy. I think without Dorothy, this pet is an F tier pet though, because you will just never use it. Cube. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Cube is one of the best mechanics in the game. I fucking love Cube. Now, if we're gonna be realistic, Cube does have issues with late game scaling. This pet is one of the strongest early and mid game pets in the game. Within the first week of the season, Cube is absolutely disgustingly OP. But I do have some issues with it. I do have some big issues with it. My first big issue of Cube is it is essentially just a proc-based pet. So it does have this 20% Desire Core crystal drop quantity, which is awesome. Like, you know, that is really cool that it does have that. Because that is a... You know, when you run Cube, you'll often run like 2 Cube pets and like the Quant pet, for example, in your maps. Or maybe you'll do like 1 Cube pet, you'll do Captain Shadow and the Quant pet. The pet itself adds a lot of value to the maps, by being one of the few ways to get extra Desire Crystals. Because if we look at the Pact Spirit site, I actually don't know if the Pact Spirit site is going to show this. Divinity, the Desire Crystals. The only ways to increase Desire Crystal drop quant... Oh, wait. Yeah, no, this pet sucks dick. I didn't realize basic drop con works for Desire Crystals. Oh, that changes everything. Yeah, that changes everything. There's no point in running the Cube pet in maps. Huh. I mean, I guess you get Divinity Stones, but there's such a small portion of your... Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so the Cube pet fucking sucks dick.
CarePulse12 just meowed.
And the reason the Cube pet fucking sucks dick is because at level 1, you have a 22% chance to double your Cube reward, and at level 6, you have a 30% chance to triple your reward. It's another pet that's just a complete trigger bot, where the pet itself does literally nothing, and it has the exact same issues as with Carjack, it has the exact same issues with Lunaria, but the pet itself is in one of the best mechanics in the game. Cube is a very powerful mechanic in the early to mid game, but it also kind of just falls off a cliff once you reach the late game. Because once you reach the late game of Cube, it just kind of doesn't do anything anymore. You essentially just become a Desire Core Crystal farmer, which is fine. Like, farming Desire Core Crystals is a very consistent way to make money. but you don't really... The whole point of Cube is to try and hit big slates, right? It's to get lucky and hit like the GG slates. The problem, and then your consistent FE in between doing the GG slates, is the fact that you're just getting Desire Core Crystals. Because Desire Crystals, or Desire Records, the fuck are they called? I'm sorry. Desire Core Record. These are your consistent FE that you're making in the maps at all times. Until you hit big. But the problem with this pet is as the season goes on, the amount of big hits that you can find just goes down significantly. Whereas early on in the season, if you've dropped like a fucking +1 all slate, boom, 100 FE. You drop a +1 spell skill slate, boom, 50 FE. Day one mod slate, +1 level, boom, 50 FE. You know, that's awesome. But then very quickly, it starts to fall off in a point where you kind of need to hit GG combinations, where it's like you either you need to hit like a plus level dexterity slate, or you need to hit like a 2 mod Gauss March slate with the exact correct 2 mods, where there is still very big hits you can find, but it's very realistic to go days without hitting any of them. And generally speaking, like the orange compass of Cube, which is also the best way to play Cube because it's really fun to play that way, is going to be like break even, or sometimes even losing your FE because it's priced around the big hits, where until you get that big hit, you're kind of just in this break even awkward territory. And if you don't go to that next investment level and you just do Cube with like purple compass and things, you're kind of just going to be stuck making a lot less FE per hour than other strats would make in the mid to late game section. With that being said, with all of the critiques I've given against this pet, I do think Cube as mechanic is one of the best mechanics in the game. I think it's such a potent mechanic that even though I have issues with the pet, this is still going to go into S tier, which is crazy. I have so many like critiques about this pet, but I'm still going to be putting it in S tier. I do kind of think that I might need to move some pets though. Nah, it's fine. I mean, this is more like an mid of A tier in my mind, because I think the Cube pet itself is very, very potent, very, very powerful. But the pet itself is kind of dookie, and you need to get level 6, which any pet that needs to be level 6 loses so many points in my mind. I know Dorothy is an SSS tier, don't comment it. But any pet that needs to be at level 6 loses a lot of value in my mind. But the reality is that Cube as a mechanic is so unbelievably powerful that it kind of does make up for that. So I'm going to just be putting it between S and A tier. Okay, before we get to Kong, we do have some other mechanics. There's Mistville. I don't know. I'm sorry. I just don't know. There is Dream. Got reworked this season. I don't fucking know. I'm sorry. And there is Aeterna. I don't know. I'm sorry. And then both of these pets are irrelevant because you cannot get them anymore. Okay, Kong. Kong I used to think of very highly, but he's lost a lot of value. But what I will say about Kong is Kong has issues and good sides to him. So, first off, the biggest issue of Kong is it does kind of feel like you do kind of feel trapped in the... It does kind of fall into the trap of needing to be level 6. Because almost any farm where Kong is good, you want to have him at level 6. If you're doing bossing, and you're doing like boss 2, boss 3, which generally have like some sort of high value card that they drop, you almost always want to have Kong 6, because that is pretty much all to profit. Like, those farms are like at a loss until they drop cards, which is like they break even, and then any dupes they get of cards is their like profit margins. So not having Kong 6 is like basically losing any sort of profit margins you might have outside of like lucky drops or big drops. Other than that, he's also used in map farms like prices card farm. Sorry, not prices, like machine card farming. Those other forms have fallen kind of out of favor. They've lost a lot of value just with like nerfs of cards and just nerfs of Kong in general, which have just made like the pet a lot worse over time. Back in the day, Kong was one of those pets that you could kind of just slot in any strat. It's very much like how I see Dorothy right now, where you could just kind of slot him in anywhere, and he would just be usable anywhere. But these days, he feels very niche. He feels like you need to specifically go out of your way to try and farm something for him. And like in the early game, you're never really gonna be using Kong. He has no value. Outside of like maybe giving you like a fucking extra card when you kill a Traveler. Which is like, who cares? In the mid game, same shit. And in the late game, like, I mean, I guess in the mid game, you start reaching a point where you might do like, you know, you might start doing the Q boss to farm Fallen Starlights. And then you really want to have Kong 6 to give you card drops. Because the card drops when you're farming for like Starlights is how you break even. It's how you make your money back until you hit the good Starlights. With all of that rambling and stuff out of the way, I used to think way more highly of Kong, but these days I think he's just an okay pet. He's a very versatile pet, but not really, because all of his versatility is in niche forms. The way you use Kong is not really in maps, but it's stuff like any of these... Oh, fuck off. Any of these Great Void bosses, Kong is usable. You go over here, you do Trial of Divinity, guess what? Kong is usable. You go Blessing of... you go... Over here, you go Path of the Brave. Guess what? Kong. You know, any of these, like, out-of-map mechanics, where it's, like, bossing, or Path of the Brave, or just these weird things, those are forms that are exclusive to Kong. And if you have Kong, it opens up all of those forms to you, as well as then being able to do other forms, like being able to do Creation Engine. You know, Creation Engine card forming. Being able to do... Machine drones card farming. It's like, he's a very niche pet. You can kind of just get away with not having him. And something I really dislike about the pet is the fact that it does kind of feel like you need to have him level 6. But the more I talk about it, like, I can't convince myself to not put him in the same tier as Dorothy. Because he essentially plays the same role as Dorothy. It's just the mechanics where he specializes in are mechanics that I just don't like. But if I like those mechanics, I'd probably rate him much higher. So I think of all that being said, like, Kong is kind of a triple S tier pet. I do think he's fallen a bit out of favor, and he's not as usable. He might be like, you know, between S and triple S tier, for example. But he is still a very, very good pet. Okay. Starfish Chandler. Starfish Chandler is a weird one. This is the pet for the Blacksail mechanic. But the pet fucking sucks dick. Like, genuinely. The pet just isn't very good. So, you have a 10% chance to double the effect of a Seal of Wizard revealed when defeating the Void Pirates. In terms of, like, pet procs and energy procs, that's so weak. It's so whatever. It's just not relevant. But she's interesting for other reasons. So one thing that she does have access to is actually at level 2 and at level 4, she gains access to 4% additional drop quant and 8% additional drop quant. So in essence, in any form that you're playing, you can use her as a substitute for Twilight Sparks, or if the form allows it, you can use her in tandem with Twilight Sparks. She isn't quite as strong, she doesn't have 16% additional drop quant, but she does give you access to 8% additional drop quant, which is pretty decent. And her effect other than that is just kind of whatever, it's kind of weak. I don't really have much to say about this pet, I'm gonna be honest with you. Blacksail's mechanic is very interesting. I think Blacksail early into the league is very, very potent. It's one of the strongest mechanics in the game you can do. But part of what makes the mechanic so good is you don't really need any pets for it. Because the pet is so weak that it doesn't really matter if you don't have access to her. And if you're like me, you can just get her to level 1 and she just kind of sometimes does her thing and it doesn't really matter, you know? It's not something you have to think about, it's not something you have to worry about at all. But what is really nice about her is there is a lot of value in doing a farm in this game where you try to get red hero memories. Red hero memories are like always a ticket jackpot item. There's never a point in time where red hero memories are not valuable. So you always have access to doing Blacksail at any point in your progression as a jackpot farm, because the actual point investment to do Blacksail is very low. It's kind of like Arcana. You could kind of just fit it in anywhere. If you have spare points, you just put in Blacksail. You do some hero memory farming and just pray to God you get lucky. Let's see if we can find the Blacksail. And then what's also interesting about her is if you do have her leveled up, she gives you 10% additional drop chance for your memories, and then 8% additional drop quant on top of that. So you're actually getting 18% additional drop quant on your hero memories, along with Twilight Sparks that can give you another 16% additional drop quant for your memories. So I do think this pet does have some value to it. I just think it's very niche, and well, the pet itself is rather versatile and it's like pretty good level 1. It's just one of those things where I rate having the pet just at all very highly, with the assumption, or like with the knowledge that she's very like early game focused, unless you want to do like the hero memory late game farming. Like you want to put her into like your strat later on to try and get red hero memories. Now, I do think pretty highly of red hero memories. I have a friend who's been doing like deep space and stuff, who just has Blacksail in deep space, who's dropped a few +2 hero memories from doing Blacksail. There's some pretty nice like jackpot potential with this pet. But yeah, I think she's very versatile. I do have a bit. I think I should talk about this a bit more about this 8% additional drop quant. It is kind of difficult to find a place to use this 8% additional drop quant, because you get your 8% additional drop quant and then 18% drop quant. That in of itself is very, very good. But because Twilight Sparks already exists in this game, generally your pet setup in any strat is going to be like the strat's purple pet, the strat's legendary pet, and then Twilight Sparks. It's kind of like weird to like find a use case or to like think of a farm where you can utilize your 8% drop quant. That's also the reason why I haven't leveled her up further. Her banner is a 1-in-4 banner. You can just pick her from the chests. Like I will give her extra points because you can pick her from the chest. So obviously Dark Search you cannot pick from the chest, which is gonna make it lose points in my eyes. But I think in terms of like a new player pet setup, I find it hard to not put her in S tier for one simple reason. I think when I'm like ranking each pet in this game and I'm talking about what they do and don't do, I think something that I really do value highly is if you have this pet level 1, how much value does it add to your pet, like to your versatility in a given league? And I think this pet's very versatile. I think this pet is usable at every stage of the game. I think you can use it in the early game. I think you can use it in the late game. You can always find a place to use it. And I also think that she is fairly well balanced. You don't need her high level. She doesn't feel oppressive if you don't have a level 6. She doesn't feel useless if you don't have a level 6. She feels really good at level 1, which makes me rate her much higher. And it's probably one of those pets that's like, once you have a spare chest and you don't have a mechanic you want to go for specifically, it is worth just putting 1 point into her. Chalk. Oh boy. The most overrated pet in the game. I said it. The most overrated pet in the game. Chalk Spirit. People don't really know how this pet works. People read 1% chance for defeated monsters drop 1 additional set of random flame fuel, and they think this pet is a ka-ching jackpot. I did a deep space map before I started this video, and when I loaded into the map, I saw at the start of the map in deep space, which is the, you know, maps with the highest mob density is from deep space. There's 690 enemies in deep space. 690 enemies on the map. So that means my chalk pet is giving me 6.9 sets of random flame fuel. My proc on my legendary pet is I get 7 flame sand. And people are saying that's the most overtuned pet in the game. And you might be like, well, what do you mean flame sand? Well, it's flame elementium. No, it's flame sand. Bro, it's fucking flames. It's always flame sand. It's always fucking flame sand. You get random flame fuel. That's just code for flame sand. The amount of times this hits flame fuel, flame elementium is so fucking low. This shit just gives you flame sand. Flame sand, flame sand, flame sand, flame sand. Chalk is so overrated. And you know what's the worst pet about this pet? The fucking purple... If you don't have, like, a high-level chalk, the purple pet's just better. The purple pet has more drop quant, and it has more flame fuel. It has 42% additional flame fuel instead of just 32%, and it has 26% drop quant instead of 15%. So anyway, chalk is, like, S tier still. This pet's so mega overrated, but it's still pretty decent. It's OP League Stored though? No, it's not OP League Stored. Chalk is so fucking mid League Stored, it's insane. Like, you don't... I know people of Chalk 6 who don't even use him on League Stored. Genuinely. He's just not good. I'm sorry, bro. This pet is so overrated, it's insane. The only thing that this pet does well is it does give you a second good flame elementium option. Because sometimes what you will be running in your setups is chalk, flame fuel, and Twilight Sparks. That's the only reason why chalk is S tier and not lower than S tier. Because having a second good flame fuel body is very valuable, and I do see the value in that. Because this pet only gives 21% flame fuel, that's garbage. These two combined, pretty good. If you're only using one flame fuel pet though, you should always use Surging Gold. Surging Gold is just better than chalk. Now, I personally like to use chalk because people see chalk and they go, damn, I'm jealous. And that's cute to me. I like using chalk because of that reason. The pet fucking sucks, dude. Surging Gold's just better. Chalk only becomes better than Surging Gold once you reach at least level 3. I think at level 3, then you can make the argument for the proc. Because, like, you know, I mentioned that you have 690 mobs in a map. Maybe you fucking add mobs to map and you somehow reach, like, 1,000 mobs. Then you have 10 sets of random flame fuel. Maybe one of those 10 sets gets turned into a 10 FE stack. If you're lucky. It doesn't, but let's say that happens, which it doesn't. Chalk is so fucking overrated. It's by far the most overrated pet in the game. Like how do you read, oh, I get 4 extra flame sand a map and think that's OP? Because, like, if you're like Tarmok 7, this is literally just 4 flame sand. Because I think Tarmok 7 maps have like 300 mob density or 400 mob density. Alright, Eternity Summoner. Eternity Summoner is the only pet in this game that has its own banner that you cannot choose from the Pact Spirit chest, which is strange. Okay, sorry, Kong also is like that. You can't choose Kong either, and he has his own banner. But she's the only one that has a banner that doesn't go, and I guess also Dorothy and Twilight Sparks. But she's the only one whose banner does not go away. You can always pull on her banner at all points in time, but you cannot choose her from the Pact Spirit box. And on top of that, her banner is a 1-in-4 banner that does not give you 2 copies. It only gives you 1 copy when you do hit her. That alone makes this pet significantly worse in my mind. Now, the value of this pet is the fact that she gives you 24% additional gear drop quant and 14% drop rarity. I think this pet is very potent level 1. She does gain quite a lot from leveling up. So at level 1, she has a 45% chance to give you 2 additional rewards on the Dark Surge. And if you level up, it goes up to 60%, and you also get 60% chance to unlock 1 additional reward. Now, these rewards, let me explain how they work. When you start a Dark Surge without the pet equipped, it is going to give you 1 reward. And then every wave you do, you have a chance to unlock the next reward, and it maxes out at 4 rewards. she has a 60% chance at max level that when you start the Dark Surge, to just immediately get 2 rewards from the get-go. And every wave of Dark Surge levels up the reward by 1. So being able to have all the rewards from the first wave is very valuable. It's a very strong proc, and especially at level 1, it's very strong. If you're a Dark Surge only farmer, like getting a level 6 is quite powerful, because it just increases your consistency a lot. It makes it that you more consistently will have all 4 rewards from the first wave, and more consistently reach max rewards and just have the most amount of potential lottery in your Dark Surge farming. Now, Dark Surge in and of itself is just a jackpot farm. It's a lottery farm. It is a farm where you spend a fuck ton of FE, you lose money every map, and the only thing you do to break even is drop blueprints, and you're just praying to drop like full Lone Walkers or full Eternities or full stacks of blueprints to like make profit. With that being said, the farm's okay. It's a very niche farm. It's a very late game farm. I haven't experimented too much with doing like Dark Surge as like a mid to early game farm. In theory, the logic behind doing it as an early to mid game farm is that a lot of the legendaries that you drop later on that are like completely worthless, if you drop them early into the season, they are rather valuable. And I do think that is worth talking about and worth mentioning. It is not a topic or an aspect of the farm that I'm too well versed in because I just haven't tried it enough yet. But I do think that if you can do Dark Surge early into the season, it is one of the strongest options. It's very similar to me, in my eyes, it is very similar to doing Outlaw or like Carjack early on, in the sense of if you rush to the mid game super fast and you like outpace everyone else and you get ahead of everyone else, doing this farm early on is just a complete money printer. It's just a complete jackpot machine, and you'll make a lot of FE because the amount of valuable uniques you can drop, or legends you can drop, are significantly higher. Now that's the Dark Surge part of the thing. The other part about this pet is actually very versatile. So additional gear drop count and drop rarity can be used in any prices farm in this game. There's quite a few ways to do prices farming in this game. You can do machines again, machines prices farming. You can do creation engine prices farming, and you can also do Dark Surge, like literally just do Dark Surge to do legendary farming. You have like various options. I think also Lunaria can be used for I think people have also used Lunaria as prices farms, although I'm not 100% sure about that. There's quite a few like different ways you can set up a prices farm. And in any of those prices farms, just having this pet level 1 is a massive boon, because this additional gear drop count is very, very valuable. Similarly, if you actually go into Dark Surge, the purple pet for Dark Surge is very, very powerful, because it also gives you 24% additional gear drop count and 40% drop rarity, as well as just generic drop count. I think the Dark Surge aspect of the pet is rather niche. It's one specific farm that is like only really good for a very limited time within the game itself. It's like really good if you get ahead of everyone like we do with Carjack, and you do Dark Surge. I think it's really good. If you wait until like this point of the season then do Dark Surge, it's really fucking mid. It's just a jackpot form and just praying to get lucky, and there's other forms that will just consistently make more FP per hour. And, you know, very early on, it's not really usable. It's just like this really good mid-game pet, only if you're ahead of other people. That alone would make me want to put this in A tier, but I do think there is a fuck ton of value in having this pet at least level 1. And I've said before, I do very highly value pets that are good at level 1. I'm kind of in a bit of a pickle here, because my initial instinct is to put this in triple S tier for the simple reason of how versatile the pet is and how many different ways you can use the pet, because it can be used in any sort of Prices form. But the problem of Prices forms, the problem of anything this pet can do, is it's so time limited. It's such a small window within the season where the pet is actually useful. And outside of those windows, I feel like the pet is very lackluster and very just average. And on top of that, you also have a very shit boon to pull on that is just not good. Like, the boon itself, I don't feel in good conscience like it makes sense to recommend people to pull on that boon. I think I'm just gonna put it in S tier. I think it's fine. I think it's just... I think it's just fine. I don't think the pet's that insane. I don't think it's that good. But I also don't think it's bad. I think if you are someone who's like trying to expand their pet collection and things, if you plan a season around the idea of you like getting ahead of people and things and wanting to do dark search early on, this pet has a lot of value. I think if you plan on doing Prices farming at all, because I personally really like doing Prices farming in the early season, like day 2, day 3, I love doing Prices farming. I think it's very valuable, very good to do. Getting this pet to level 1 is pretty decent. I don't think this pet makes any sense economically to get level 6 ever. I don't think like doing like this Omega endgame dark search farming makes any sense either. I feel like this pet has very niche usabilities and having it level 1 is just good enough. Captain Shadow. This pet's fucking overtuned. This pet is what Chalk wishes Chalk was. This pet is what everyone thinks Chalk is. This is by far the strongest, like... I'm gonna go ahead and say that this pet is the second strongest pet in the game. Captain Shadow is fucking absurd. But there's one caveat. He is the best pet in the game for the first 5 days of the season. And after that, he becomes fucking useless. If there's any pet in this game to have on League Start, I think Captain Shadow is him. Captain Shadow on League Start is absolutely absurd because there is so many various ways in this game to gain access to a lot of bosses. And if you play this game and you do a League Start, and you just do a natural progression from like the start of the game until Atomic 8-1, the difference between people who have Captain Shadow and people who don't have Captain Shadow is thousands of embers. I'm literally talking about a difference of when I get to like Tarmac 8, I will have like 1,000 precious embers. I'll have like, okay, maybe not 1,000, but like I will literally never ever run out of precious embers crafting my T1 gear or my T2 gear. I will craft full T2 gear into crafting full T1 gear and never have to buy a single ember. Whereas my friends who don't have Captain Shadow will literally be complaining non-stop that they have to constantly buy embers and they have no embers ever. A few seasons back, they changed the game and they made it that embers became obscenely rare to drop. You just don't see ember drops anymore in the game. And the thing that makes Captain Shadow so good is the fact that his ember drop rates, this 1 to 3 embers, is not affected by drop quantity, it's not affected by changes to embers, because it always just gives you a flat amount of 1 to 3 embers. Which is so unbelievably powerful, because if you're doing hundreds and hundreds of maps, this very quickly adds up. If you're doing like in the first day of the league, you're doing like 300 maps, which is very easy to do. Like just play the video game, right? If you do 300 maps, the average person doing 300 maps in the first day will probably have like a total of 150 embers. Just by having this, I pulled the number off my ass, by the way, just for clarity. Just having this pet is going to give you access to an additional 360 embers. So more than 3 times the amount of embers based off the number that I pulled out of my ass. Now, is the number that I pulled out of my ass correct? Probably not. But it isn't very far off, I'll be real with you. This pet completely carries my early game every single season. I make so much FP per hour every single season just by equipping him and having him on. Because if you do a strat like Cube, for example, in the first few days of the league, Cube spawns a bunch of extra bosses on the map, and I'm just getting like an extra fucking 5 embers on average per map or something, just by having this dude equipped. Just disgustingly overtuned. Very, very OP pet. Highly, highly recommend that people start simping him and stop simping Chalk, because Chalk fucking sucks dick. Captain Shadow's OP. But this all comes with a caveat that at some point in time in the season, the value of embers do drop a lot, and then with that, the value of Captain Shadow does drop a lot. That being said, though, he does give you access to quite a few, like, very good farms in this game. Like, you know, Might Ember farming is very, very potent, very, very strong. It's pretty much good every single season. And having Captain Shadow just makes that farm much better. Because instead of having to use the purple pet, the blue pet, and then the quant pet, you can completely drop this blue pet for Captain Shadow and just do Shadow, Cloud Gather Sky, and then quant pet. Or even triple Ember. But yeah, very, very big fan of Captain Shadow. I think he's a very good pet. I think people just undervalue this pet and overvalue Chocolate. Anyway, this was the longest fucking rant of my entire life. Holy shit, this took long to make. This is my tier list. Don't screenshot this out of context, because if you don't actually listen to the discussion and why we rate things the way we rate them, you don't actually understand the tier list, and you're stupid. Let's see if there's any last minute adjustments I'd make. So, really big fan of Vorax, very good pet level 1. Very big fan of Arcana, good at every point on the stage of the game. Does kind of rely on levels, but the mechanic itself has a lot more value than like these two at the bottom. Big fan of Canvas pet, but the mechanic itself sucks dick. Big fan of Alice and Clockwork. Very specific and niche, but the pet itself is very good level 1. Cube, very strong mechanic, the pet itself sucks dick. You kind of need level 6, which is why I don't like it that much. Even though the mechanic itself is very good, which is why I'm putting it between S and A tier. I do think I'm a bit biased. Realistically, this should only be an A tier. Big fan of Blacksail because it's very good pet level 1. Chock's okay. Eternity Summoner, don't like how rare the pet is, but it's very versatile and very usable. All three of these pets are kind of in level 6 gel, where it just feels like you need to have them level 6 for them to be useful. The current League Mechanic pet is always going to be worth to get level 1, but you never know if it's going to be good the League afterwards. Triple S tier, Dorothy, insanely good pet, very, very versatile, very usable. Only problem with this pet is it's not very good early on. Most of her value does come in once you reach like the mid-game portion of the game. Sandlord, very, very, very insane pet. Probably the best League Mechanic specific pet in the game. Her only weakness is that she's not very good in the mid-game. But she's very strong early on when balts are worth a lot in the very early stages. And she's very strong in the late game when gliders like probes and things start becoming very valuable. Kong, very, very versatile pet, extremely versatile pet, opens up a lot of farms in the game. But his value as a pet has been decreased just with changes to card drops where you can't really use him that much in just generic mapping anymore. Captain Shadow, the king of early game. Very, very weak pet like in the mid and late game sections of the game, which does, in my mind, like lose him a lot of value. But he is so oppressively OP in the early game that I cannot, like, in good confidence, put him in a lower tier. And then the GOAT. I mean, just having a generic quant pet obviously is very, very, very overtuned. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching YouTube. I'm so sorry about this insanely long video. I just had the idea to make this. I did not think we would go on such a long ramble, but I really wanted to talk in depth about every mechanic and just go over all of this. Thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. And Jesus, if you've been watching until this far, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, YouTube. Bye-bye.